For most of our lives, we've been told to be patient. We've been told that if we just hold out a little bit longer, or if we just do that, we'll get to this. Or if we get this, then we're going to be able to do that. And sometimes you need to ask for forgiveness a little bit later, and you need to just do what needs to be done. And so if you want to bend reality to your will, you have to understand that pathological self-confidence is going to be the only antidote to do this. Now, I say pathological self-confidence can be an antidote, but it can also be a symptom of narcissism, okay? So you've got to be mindful of that. But this is what narcissists get so well, and we have to give credit to them in some sense, give the devil his due, right? Because they're really good at making it seem like they are trying to do something that is for your benefit when it's always for them. And they always have this gleam to them. They don't have a glow like people that are actually godly. They have a gleam. They don't have that glow, right? And so what ends up happening is you still are feeling like the density of their aura around these kinds of people. Specifically, like if you've been around a salesman, a good salesman, he's got a very dense aura about him. It's like it draws you in for some reason. And yet at the same time, and by the same token, that same drawing in of is actually just kind of a vortex of nothingness. It's not really, you're not getting anything out of it usually. Like maybe you are sometimes, but most of the time you're not going to be getting something out of it. And so what you have to do is flip the complete script and do that to manifest whatever it is that you're trying to manifest in your life. And when I say manifest, I mean you have to operate under the thought algorithms that are not only conscious but subconscious. This is where I see a lot of men go wrong when they're trying to create something. And myself, I've been guilty of this in the past, where I didn't know what it was like to actually believe in myself. I didn't know what it was like to know that I'm actually capable of doing something, that I'm actually capable of creating a vision, that the work that I can do and that I'm able to do is going to be worth something down the line. I never knew that this was possible. I never thought that it was going to be possible because I didn't believe in myself. Now, I'm not saying to idolize yourself, and I'm not saying that you should be completely deluded in your thought processes, but you've got to have a little bit of discretion when you're operating from this place, because when I say pathological self-confidence, what I really mean is you have to believe it even if you don't believe it. You've got to believe in yourself even if you don't believe in yourself. And that's the only way that you're going to really be able to truly get beyond whatever it is that you're going through at the moment. Because if you don't get beyond that, if you don't move beyond the hurdle internally, you're never going to be able to manifest this externally. And this is where I see a lot of men go wrong. And you can bend reality to your will if you really wanted to through this tactic. And narcissists don't necessarily understand the true capacity and power with it, because remember in the Bible it says God does not give us the spirit of fear. He gives us the spirit of power and love. And that's exactly what you can do to bend reality to your will, is through the spirit of power and love. But you also have to recognize that your will and your ability to bend reality and not have it snap back at you is completely dependent on whether or not it's in accordance to God's will also. Because if it's not in accordance to God's will, then reality is going to snap back, and reality can be a real piece of crap sometimes. So what do you do about this? How do you go about this? How exactly do you live a life where you're living in accordance to God's law, statutes, and commandments, you're operating into His will, but you're also asserting yourself and you're a force to be reckoned with? Well, it comes back to confidence, and specifically self-confidence. And once you get to the point where you no longer need pathological self-confidence, it's almost like reality will only give you what you feel you deserve on the inside. And so I see a lot of men, specifically, this is more a video for men, but it can apply to women, because I don't think necessarily women are trying to put their dent in the world. They're not trying to force their way. Some women are, of course, and if they're operating the power in the spirit of power and love, more power and love to them, I suppose. But for specifically men here, this is what I see happening. It's that they have the desire to do something, but they don't have the will. And in order to get the will, you have to have the drive. Well, what exactly does that even mean? Like, how can you describe a will to somebody that doesn't have a will? Like, it's like trying to explain salt to somebody that's never tasted salt. How do you do that? Well, so in order to experience willpower and to have the will to power, which is something that Nietzsche has talked about, and I would in some ways consider myself a student of Nietzsche, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a disciple of Nietzsche. And in some ways, I'm a student also of Carl Jung, because these concepts apply to Carl Jung. And I would also consider myself a student of Schopenhauer and Kierkegaard and a lot of these other philosophers and great thinkers and great minds, but I'm not necessarily a disciple of them. The only true disciple that I would consider myself as and to be under is Jesus Christ. And you have to think about what Jesus did, because even Jesus said that if you had faith, you can do anything, pretty much, right? He said that all you have to do is have the faith. Well, in some ways, in order to get to the faith, people first have to experience the dark side of that self-confidence, which is the pathological self-confidence, believing in yourself even though there's no reason to. And that is kind of like cultivating the dark side of the force in some sense, because you have to be acquainted with the dark forces within you in order to get to that point. And if you have put these dark forces into a box and shoved them underneath the couch, and if you only want to open these boxes when there's something happening to your life, you're never going to be actually able to apply them when whatever situation that you're not in anymore. So you've got to be able to look at these things no matter how scary or frightening they may be. And you might not even know that you've put these things into a box. You might not even know that you put these things under a do not open button, or a do not open label rather. And there's also maybe a button inside that says do not press this button. But you might need to press that button, because that might be the button that you need to accelerate you to the next level. Because if you do not, think about this. Think about a time in your life where maybe it was think about like a class. Everybody's had a class before. I'm trying to make this as relatable to everybody as possible in some way. Everybody's had a class where they had to do like a group presentation, right? But maybe you really didn't want to get up in front of the class and do this, but you have to do it. And it's almost like you think in your mind, if you press that do not press button, there's going to be, instead of like 30 kids in the class, there's going to be hundreds or even thousands. It's going to feel like that anyway when they're watching you give this presentation. But all you need to know is if you had that pathological self-confidence and you actually press that button that says do not press, because God didn't place that there necessarily. It was you that placed that label there. But if you press that button, all of your anxiety would cease. All of your anxiousness would go away somewhere and be dissolved. But you don't know that until you press the button. That's sometimes what it's going to be like to have that pathological self-confidence. You're going to be able to dissolve barriers that you didn't know were capable of being dissolved until you actually have that kind of level of confidence. Me, myself, I'm 5'6", and I'm like 155 pounds. Okay, so I'm not the biggest guy in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I am in shape, and I know what I want, and I'm willing to go after what I want, and I'm assertive when I talk to anybody. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. I'm assertive and I'm direct, and I'm not rude, but I let it be known what's up, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. Again, I'm not going to be rude about it, but I'm going to let people know what I really think. Because I genuinely think that when I'm in an interaction, socially speaking, there's really nothing that I can say that's wrong, because at this point in my life, I know that I'm operating from who I am, because I know who I am. And if I know who I am, then I can just be. So it takes a certain level of confidence to get to that point, though. And so what's going to happen is when you finally do get to that point, things and people are going to start treating you a certain way. And you might already have this to some degree, which if you do, either you're just watching for entertainment purposes, or you're just listening to listen, I suppose, or just seeing what I'll say, because this is more for people that are wanting to develop that kind of confidence and really learn about the secrets of spirituality in the universe, because that's really what this is. When we talk about bending reality to your will, what that really means is you're changing the laws of nature to some degree to fit your preferences. And I'm not necessarily saying that you're going to be able to change the laws of nature. Okay, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that you're going to be able to, it's almost like a shortcut. Think about this, right? It's like if I gave you a piece of paper and it had flap A, flap B, flap C. If I told you that if you fold flap A to flap B, you'll get to flap C, that seems pretty reasonable, right? That seems pretty understandable. But if I said, well, if you flip flap A to flap C, you'll get the whole alphabet, that might not make sense, right? Because what just happened before is like, well, it's A, B, C. But if I just go from A to C, I'll get everything. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's shortcuts that you can make in life where you don't necessarily have to follow all the rules all the time of the world, but you follow the rules of God's laws, statutes, and commandments. You follow the rules of the universe, okay? So if you follow, because God's laws are higher than any other law, okay? Let's get that clear and out of the way. So if you are operating from a point in which you can clearly see that, okay, this is what the worldly law is, but if I do X, I can bypass that law and still stay within God's laws, statutes, and commandments. Well, if it's going to make your life easier and nothing's going to really come of it, again, I'm not telling you to break any laws or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, there's certain shortcuts that you can make in life. It's kind of like a trail, right? Sometimes if you don't need to go the long way, you don't need to go the long way, right? So you want to go and get there as soon as possible, and you want to, because it's not necessarily, sometimes it is about the destination. Sometimes it is. Life is a journey, and it's not about the destination as far as life is concerned, but there are like series within your life where the destination is what matters. And sometimes you need speed. You need to get off the ground. In order for an eagle to fly, it needs the speed of the wings flapping in order to get off the ground. The eagle's not going to fly just ooh, ooh. The eagle's not going to fly like that. So you've got to have certain levels of understanding of the game of life and the rules of life, and that's how you'll be able to bend reality to your will while staying in God's laws, statutes, and commandments. So with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. I want to thank everybody that's been moving also over to the X and the Rumble platform here from YouTube. And that's been a really, nice support. It really shows, who the OGs are of this YouTube. And also, if you're interested in joining the Regal Change Academy, there's a free Discord channel where there's a bunch of free resources available for you that you can join. Or if you want to join the paid community where we meet once a week, and there's a lot more exclusive information there on that platform. It's a all-in-one community and course directive where we help people grow closer to God, help people strengthen healthy relationships, help people with their fitness goals, and build people's brand and purpose. So like if you're an entrepreneur or something like that, that's going to be a good place for you to lay the groundwork for your business. And with that being said, peace be with you. Till next time.